Welcome, everyone, to the Open Skills Network April Showcase on the enhancements of the Open Skills Management Tool, or OSMT. We are so excited to have you here today, and a special thank you to anyone who is joining us from some of our conversations at ASU GSV. We got to see so many of the OSN family face-to-face, which was incredible after such a long time of not getting together. And we got to meet so many new people and welcome them into the OSN community. And so if you're joining us from that point, welcome. And welcome to the rest of you also. We're excited to have you here with us today. We want to take a moment to just say thank you. It's our appreciation for the funding provided by Walmart for our ongoing efforts. We are grateful for that. So today we are going to be talking about the Open Skills Management Tool, or OSMT, and the enhancements and development work that's happening there. And please place your questions into the chat and we will do our best to address them at the end of the presentation. And of course, we also invite you to engage with us on social media. You can find us on Twitter and LinkedIn, as well as YouTube, where you can watch past showcases. But don't stop there. Be a part of this work and the larger conversation on skills by joining the Open Skills Network. So let's get today underway. We're going to do a little bit of just welcoming and announcements, which is what I'm doing right now. We're going to introduce the OSMT Search Hub, have a few closing remarks, and then we've got that great Q&A time. And again, please place your questions into the chat and we'll be able to field them to our amazing speaker. And speaking of that, let's dive into our topic for today, enhancing OSMT. Please welcome our presenter, Allison Blackwell, Senior Product Manager for Western Governors University. And Allison, I'm going to pass you the baton.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. Good to see you and be with you again for another showcase. Like Christian said, Allison Blackwell. If you're familiar with the OSN's work, you've probably seen me talking at you from a screen before about OSMT. Before I dive in, I want to introduce two potentially new faces to you who are fellow panelists today. One is John Callies. He's a staff software engineer from WGU who is the lead maintainer on the OSMT open source GitHub repository. And the other is Shashank Rao, who is a fairly new product manager to WGU and is actually taking over the Open Skills Management Tool project as the lead product manager. And so you'll be seeing a lot more of Shashank moving forward in showcases, and I know he's super excited to be a presenter in the future. And this I call my going away present to all of you, my swan song, if you will, for the OSN work. I've promised Shashank that I'm not leaving him and will continue to be a wing woman as needed. But super excited to have Shashank on the project. He is fantastic and has really dived right in, getting up to speed with all the great work that's taken place thus far. And so look forward to getting to know him more in the future. All right, so I'm really excited to talk to you about some enhancement work that we've done to date on OSMT, and that is the OSMT Search Hub. So the OSMT Search Hub will act as a federated search opportunity for OSMT users to be able to not only manage their own skills libraries, as OSMT allows one to do, but to begin to interface with other OSMT instances and make use of skills from OSMT to OSMT. So the OSMT Search Hub allows users to share RSDs and collections with other OSMT users, to search other OSMT users' RSDs and collections, and then to make use of those external RSDs and collections straight from their very own OSMT. And why did we decide to do this, you might ask? Well, to date, if you've interacted with OSMT at all, you know that we have the code available to you in our open source repo. You're able to access that code to stand up your own OSMT, which is fantastic. It allows you to manage your skills, create new skills, create collections of skills and publish those skills. But unless you're publishing links to those RSDs or collections, which WGU has done and which is fantastic. There's not really an easy way to take those RSDs and collections and to actually make use of those RSDs and collections. So what we're enabling to date now, based on the latest enhancement work that we've done, is to add additional functionality to make RSDs more portable between organizations, so that we can truly have the network of usable skills that we want to create. So the OSMT to OSMT search, as I sometimes call it, or the search hub, will enable direct access to RSDs and collections that have been shared, and management of them within an individual user's OSMT instance, which is fantastic. And there's a couple ways that this will happen. The first is that users will be asked to register with the OSMT Search Hub. And there's a couple different decisions that I'll talk about along the way that organizations will have to make when it comes to participation in the Search Hub. And this is the first step. So organizations will have to ask, do we want to register with the Search Hub? And if they do, there will be a URL that users will go to. And this is the flow that someone would complete in order to register. So they'd access the site and sign up. And it really is as simple as providing your organization's name and an email. Once you provide that name and email, you'll receive a configuration token that can be added to your OSMT code, so that you can take advantage of the Search Hub functionality. Important to note that if you do want to have access to the next functionality that I'm going to talk about, which is the ability to advanced search other users, RSDs and collections, you have to register to participate. Even if you don't end up sharing any of your own RSDs or collections, registration is essential part of being able to access other users' data. So the API token down here, you can see someone will need to grab it, and whomever is providing you the technical support would use that API token to configure your OSMT to take advantage of this capability. And once you've done that, you can, like I said previously, share your RSDs and collections with other OSMT users, search for them via advanced search, which I'll walk you through, and then import them and make use of those external users' RSDs and collections straight from your OSMT. All right, so there are several slides here that'll walk you through exactly what these processes look like. So we'll start with enabling the sharing of RSDs and collections here. On the screen, you can see an individual rich skill descriptor. If you're fairly new to our OSN work, if you did come from ASU GSV, for example, and you haven't attended previous showcases, I'll give you a quick rundown of what a rich skill descriptor is, or an RSD. Essentially, it's a data package for skills. In the OSN, it's really foundational that we don't just talk about skill as a single word or a keyword, but rather as a skill performed in context. And so essential to a skill are a skill statement. You can see one on the screen here. A skill statement, a short name for that skill. Here, the example is infrastructure component security, and an author. Those are the required elements of a rich skill descriptor, but what also comes with the rich skill descriptor, which I cut off the screen because it's not exactly what we're talking about today, are opportunities to align all other sorts of metadata to an RSD that makes it even richer, more useful and meaningful within a given context for whatever purpose the skill is needed for, whether that's crafting curriculum, authoring job descriptions, creating digital credentials, etc. So some of those additional metadata fields include keywords for searchability, categories for organization, certifications or standards that particular skill might be aligned to, and then job codes. So job codes across ONET and the Bureau of Labor Statistics, SOC codes as well, are able to be aligned and maintained. And then there's also opportunity for external alignments to RSDs. So if there are industry recognized frameworks, for example, that align to that RSD, or other type of labor market insights that someone would want to align the RSD to, as long as there's a URL, users are able to create as many alignments as possible, all with the intention of making that skill as useful useful and meaningful and contextualized as possible. All right, so what we added here on the RSD screen is the ability to share to the Search Hub and unshare from the Search Hub. So this is another choice that I mentioned that a user will have to make when they choose to participate in the Search Hub, is to actually share their RSDs or unshare their RSDs from the Search Hub on a case-by-case basis. And this allows users to maintain proprietary RSDs and collections if they choose to do that, or to make them open and accessible for others. So just because you've published a skill does not mean it's been shared to the Search Hub, but you will be prompted when you publish to make that decision and make it accessible to other users. All right, I'll go to the next slide here. You can also, okay. So once you've made that decision to share, you can externally, I'm all getting twisted up with my words. Back to it. Once you've decided to share your RSDs, you can search them or enable others to search them rather via external libraries. So the share decision means that other users can search external libraries via the advanced search page within OSMT. So under this advanced search screen where I've cut off, users can search for any of the metadata properties of an RSD or a collection. And the added functionality here shows that users can search their own library, or they can toggle and search external libraries. And the way that it's been configured at this point is that any user who's registered with the Search Hub will show up here and will be able to be checked for search. So you can see that there's 3 options here: the OSMT Review Library, the Badger Skills Library, and Wiggins Local Library. A shout out to Wiggins, one of our awesome developers who's worked on OSMT. So you can see that here. You can check the libraries that you want to search and then enter your search parameters below and see what RSDs or collections are returned there for you to examine. This is what the search results would look like, very similar to what the advanced search results already look like when searching for RSDs. I entered in a title here, Collaborative Business Writing, returned 7 results, and now I'm able to look at those RSDs and decide if I want to bring them into my library or not. An addition that we made here for clarity is that if this is an RSD that is not a part of the user's library, but rather external library, you can see that there's now a library field under the status of the RSD. So both of these RSDs are from the OSMT Review Library, which I used for testing of this functionality. So I can take a look at them, I can open them up and view more details about them if I want to do that. And then I can choose to import those RSDs into my own library if I want to do so. If you're familiar with OSMT, you know that there's also a convenience built in that does a similarity check for you. It'll tell you how similar RSDs that you're batch importing or now importing from external libraries are to ones that already exist in your library. And the similarity check is also performed here, just like at batch import, on the search results from your external libraries as well. So you can take a look at that, you can make the decision to import the RSD, and once you've done that, it's in your library and ready to be used. And when you open that RSD up in your own OSMT library, there's a couple things I wanted to call your attention to. So what it looks like to work with someone else's RSD that you've essentially now brought into your own OSMT for use. The first is that you can make a copy of that RSD, and you can actually edit and work with that RSD. It will become white labeled to your own OSMT instance, but the original RSD URL, so that canonical URL that travels with the RSD, and the author will be stored in the audit log. So every RSD and collection has an audit log to maintain the edit history. So even if you clone an RSD and decide to edit it and make use of it for your own purposes, that history will be retained. The second is that you can view the published RSD, and like I said, the author's white label is retained. So if you click to open up that RSD and view it in its published state, it will maintain the white labeling of the OSMT instance in which it was authored. And the third is that you can remove external RSDs from your OSMT library. This is very different from when you author your own RSDs. We don't have a hard delete of your own RSDs, but rather an archive. But in this case, you can remove external RSDs from your library and there will be no history that they had ever been there. I call it kicking it to the curb. So you can kick RSDs to the curb if you want to, and they will not be retained within your library. All right. You can also import external collections for use. So I did an external search here. I was looking for a specific one so I could take a screenshot. So I searched for the QA collection, and you can see just like with the RSD, it has the library on it. It has the title of the library, how many RSDs are in it, and then I can choose to import that collection directly into my library. A couple things to note though when importing a full collection at this point is that there won't be a similarity check done on the RSDs in the collection when you bring them in. So you may have RSDs that are very similar, which is why we allow you to kick them to the curb if you end up not wanting to keep them in your library. And then the other thing I wanted to mention was that I forgot it. So I'll tell you when I think of it. But it won't do the similarity check here for you. I remembered what I wanted to say. If you pull in an RSD that happens to already be in your library, you've maybe pulled in another collection or you've searched for RSDs individually and pulled them in and it's duplicated, it will not bring in a duplicate of that RSD, but just rather update it to the latest metadata that RSD has at the point in time in which you're now importing it. So just wanted to call that out as well, that you won't end up with duplicates in your library. To work with external collections, you can only do a couple things here. One is that you can view that published collection, and just like with the RSD, the white label will be retained. So if you view the published version of the collection and see it at its canonical URL, the author's white label will display at the top of the page. And similarly to the RSD as well, you can remove the external collection from your OSMT library. However, this is a little confusing and tricky, so I did want to mention it, that the RSDs within the collection will not be removed from your library. So it's essentially like you've received a gift and you've taken the wrapping paper and the box and you've thrown it away, but you're keeping the contents of the box in your home. You're keeping the present. So that's what this looks like right now, is that you can delete the shell of the collection so that it no longer displays in your list, but you cannot delete the individual RSDs with the collection. Rather, you'd have to do that individually. So calling that out just so you're aware of that. And we're about here to the end. So you see this functionality, you think it's super amazing and awesome, and you really want to work with other users, RSDs in your own OSMT library. How would you go about it? So if you have an OSMT instance, there's only one thing different that you need to do if you still need OSMT. The first thing for all users would be to register with the Search Hub. And it says release pending, and I'll get back to that in a moment. But if you already have an OSMT, essentially you would just need to upgrade your OSMT to support Search Hub capabilities. So that would mean pulling in the latest code that does have these changes implemented into your application. And if you still need an OSMT, then a good place to start, whether or not the Search Hub has been released fully or not, is just to stand up your own instance of OSMT. And you can get started by visiting osmit.io, or there's a QR code at the end, which I think is super fancy. So you can visit that as well and start reading up on what it would take to get your OSMT in place to be ready to go. Once you've done either of those things, you would just add the API token value from the OSMT configuration file, which is what I showed in one of our first slides, the register for Search Hub slide, and then you'd be ready to go. Essentially, you'd be able to start sharing your RSDs and collections and making them available for other users to search. So I think that was all I had on that, but I do want to call your attention, of course, to release pending, because what this means, of course, is that you cannot go to the OSMT GitHub repo where we store the code base today and take advantage of these changes, There's still a couple internal conversations that we need to have about hosting strategy and support for the OSMT Search Hub. So there will be a lot more coming soon on this, but we hope that you'll join in our excitement about what this means for the future of sharing and accessibility of RSDs and collections, and the ability to actually work with other users, RSDs and collections, which is one of the most common questions that I get no matter where I'm talking about OSMT is, how do I take advantage of so-and-so's skills or so-and-so's collections? And this is a great way to be able to do that. So we're really excited to roll out this functionality to you in the very near future. And we hope that you'll stay tuned with us as we work hard to make it fully available to you. And I think that's what I got. What questions do you have? I saw a couple in the chat, so I'll scroll back up here and take a look.
Yeah, I can read. I
Oh,
captured
awesome.
both of
Thank you,
those.
Christian.
Yeah, absolutely. So what happens, this was when you were talking about RSDs. What happens if you've used a shared RSD and it's moved by the owner to unshared?
So you would maintain it in your library. It would just mean that if someone searched, it would no longer show up in the search results.
Perfect. And then Christina asks, what technical level does one need to really truly get started with OSMT?
That's a great question. And I'll kick that one over to John.
Hello. Hi, I'm John Callies. It is a great question. The OSMT, the skills architect or the people doing the OSMT work are going to need some level of engineering support. And it's deployed like any other enterprise application in a cloud context or in a local data center or however the engineering people who deploy applications do that. And every organization is different. So you need some nerds, and they need to be able to manage programs for you. That doesn't mean that you have to be technical to use OSMT, but somebody has to do that technical lift. It would be wonderful if that was a service in the market. We don't see that yet. So if anybody has a desire to do OSMT as a service, there certainly is a need for it. That's out there. If you go to the GitHub repo and you pull it down, there is a basic facility for standing up a local OSMT instance for eval. It still requires a tiny bit of technical skill, but you could do what we call our quick start, and you could do a local evaluation and try it out, but that would not be suitable for a long-term permanent OSMT installation. I hope that was enough. I guess reply back in the chat if you want to hear more.
Yeah, and then the short answer from a non-software developer would be you definitely need some technical expertise to get started with OSMT. So if it's not you, look to see what resources you have within your company, and maybe there's someone that you can talk to and pull in to be your John and help you get going.
Sure.
Perfect. Another question that I see here in the chat is, could you explain a bit more on the quick start?
Sure. The quick start, we were trying to make OSMT accessible with as little command line typing as possible. And so the quick start is available in the README documents with the source code. And the intention is if you follow these 5 or 6 basic steps on a computer that's got the right dependencies installed, then in theory, you should probably be able to stand up an OSMT and play with it. And so the hope there was to give access to an eval instance that's suitable for playing with it, but nobody would want to use that and invest hundreds of hours of work into it.
Yep. So definitely a quick start for software developers still.
So there's still that asterisk there.
Yeah.
And with that, could you advise us a little bit more about what APIs are available for OSMT?
Another good question. So within the source code repo, there is an open API specification document. So if somebody is interested in APIs, they probably also know what to do with an open API spec document. And it's our intention that that is current. If you find a gap or a discrepancy, by all means, please share that back within the issues within GitHub, and we would love to fix that. But it's our intention that that is the current specification.
And I will say, I got this question earlier outside of this showcase, but the question was, are there APIs in place to take advantage of this search capability? Meaning, I think that you wouldn't necessarily have to stand up your own OSMT instance to search and make use of other users' RSDs and collections, and we don't have that functionality today, but it is something that we've discussed, and Shashank will be your point person on that type of question moving forward as he explores the value and viability of doing something like that.
So I said a lot of syllables, but find the nerds in your company and have them reach out via GitHub. Go to osmint.io and please reach out to me. It's my intention to provide as much community uplift as possible to an organization who wants to do this. And so please reach out if you want more help. I can't do it for you, but I will give as much advice as possible.
And we'll call attention to Colin from LEF, who's been an awesome support LEF has, and Colin individually, to the OSN and specifically to the pilots and collaboratives that have taken place via OSN. And as he said in the chat, they have successfully partnered with other organizations to help them implement their OSMT instance and to start getting authoring and publishing, etc. So if you would like support, LEF is definitely throwing their hat in the ring on that and has had success there.
Fantastic. And one final thought here, unless there are any other questions. Oh, I see Kyle has mentioned something too. I work for an early stage startup interested in exploring the possibility of something like OSMT as a service. Who on this panel might I reach out to for a more detailed question or questions that he might have about that possibility? Would that be to you, John?
I just dropped my email address. Let's try this one as well. So there's a group box called open source at wgu.edu, or you can reach out to me personally, and I'm happy to steer and direct and answer initial questions. We have a desire to make a repeatable push button OSMT available. There's some work to be done towards that end.
Perfect. And Allison, would you be able to just maybe let us peek behind the curtain just a little bit? What are some of the future thoughts regarding OSMT and enhancements that might occur down the road? I know you're stepping away, and we've got some new fantastic team members stepping forward to kind of support us in our movement forward. But could you maybe give us a little peek behind the curtain on some of the conversations that are happening about where OSMT might go next?
Sure, but I'm going to be really vague.
Of course, of
And
course.
if Shashank wants to chime in with how he's thinking about things moving forward, please feel free, Shashank, to do that. But what he and I have talked about in the transition is that at this point, there's no formal roadmap for OSMT. There are a lot of enhancement opportunities that have come out of use by the skills architects at WGU who are using OSMT in their work today, that have come out of feedback from OSN pilot members, OSN collaborative participants, that have come from other demos to other organizations or via showcases. And so there are common themes that have come out of that. And I think that they can be grouped into various buckets, like how can we just make OSMT more usable, more user-friendly, not the V1 OSMT, but something that is more efficient for day-to-day use. And then another bucket, which is how can we continue to grow the open skills network and truly make RSDs and collections as accessible and usable as possible. And so I think that you'll see both those type of enhancements moving forward, but I'll add that all of these enhancement opportunities need additional research and discovery that Shashank will be leading. And so I don't know that I would speak to any one of them in particular, but to know that we're looking at things through those different lenses and that there'll be more to come.
Yeah, I would stand by everything that Allison has just said, and I would just add a couple of things.
Mhm.
First is that as more people begin to use Osmet, especially through the Search Hub, we'll be able to gradually develop a better picture of how people are using Osmet, and get some more information that will enable us to refine it into a better product that really targets the needs of the target audience of Osmet. So kind of along the lines of what Allison just said, that'll be part of the discovery and research to make sure that we're building Osmet into what it needs to be for the people that use it, rather than what we think it should be, because really it's about the user of Osmet at the end of the day, and making this as accessible for them as possible. The second thing to mention is that Osmet is open source. And so hopefully in the future, other members of OSN, current and future, could help contribute to building out Osmet as a whole product, perhaps tailored to use cases specific for their organizations initially, but in the end, contributing to the greater open source project and kind of becoming a more integrated part of that community. So those are a couple of things to just give you a picture of what and how we plan to grow Osmit in the future.
Well said.
Thank you so much, all of you, and thank you to Allison for your time today, and the rest of our incredible panel for answering the questions and providing your thoughts and your expertise. So we appreciate you being here. And I want to direct our audience to that email once again. If you do have questions regarding Osmit in more detail, please feel free to reach out to opensource@wgu.edu. And of course, you can always reach out to OSN at info@osn or info@openskillsnetwork.org. And I'd like to direct you also to our events page. Our next showcase will be on May 19th at 2 p.m. Eastern, and we're going to be talking about open recognition and open skills. So we invite you to join us a month from now on the third Thursday of May. So do click on the QR here and learn more about Osmit and dive in. And thank you so much, all of you, for being here today. We appreciate you, and we look forward to seeing you next month. Bye-bye.
Thank you.